Oyakodon is a great comfort food. And given how simple it is, I thought that we'd give it a try with a honey and mustard version too. Hi, I'm Cassie and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to make a Japanese chicken and egg dish called Oyakodon. In this video I'll be running through the ingredients and then I'll be showing you the traditional and standard version of Oyakodon, but I'll also be showing you a honey and mustard version, which I think has some slightly brighter flavours. When translated directly, Oyakodon means parent and child rice bowl, which is kind of dark, but I'm going to just move straight past that and tell you that it originated in Tokyo and the main components of the dish are rice, chicken and egg. Just like with my red wine gyudon, which I'll put a link to above, I still want to keep the essence of Oyakodon in my honey mustard dish. So to do that, I'm going to make it in a very similar way, but the main difference will be that I'm taking out the onion and I'm making a slightly thicker and brighter sauce. We'll also be using chicken stock instead of dashi. This means that the honey mustard version tastes a little bit more Western, and it brings out more of the meaty chicken flavors. But it's definitely worth giving a go. So let's see how to make it. So these are the ingredients that you'll need for the traditional Oyakodon. I happen to have a very small weird onion here, but half an onion will do just fine. And dashi is a type of fish stock, so if you want to know how to make that from scratch, then I'll put a link to a simple recipe down below. And these are the ingredients for the honey and mustard Oyakodon. Here the mustard is the most important, so we've got a Dijon and a whole grain. We're going to start with the traditional Oyakodon. So get out your small onion or half an onion, and we're just going to peel it and slice it. We also want to get rid of that hard end bit, so usually what I do is make 2 small incisions and then get rid of that triangle. However, if you want to avoid releasing the chemical that makes you cry, you can slice it first and then do this bit at the end. To slice it up, then start with some diagonal slices lengthways. Then slowly keep making it more and more vertical until you have a nice vertical line in the center. Then you can just push over your onion and do the same thing again. Keep these at about a medium width, not too thin and not too thick. Then we're just going to thinly slice 2 spring onions. These are just for garnish at the end. Then we're going to grab our giant chicken thighs. Chicken in general here seems to be much bigger than in the UK, which is slightly concerning, but either way I used around 600 grams of chicken. And I'm just cutting off any cartilage or anything that might be chewy later. And now that we've done all our cutting, let's make our quick Oyakodon sauce. Here we're using 8 grams of powdered dashi to 50 milliliters of hot water, or you can just use 50 milliliters of fresh dashi. To which we're going to add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of mirin. Some people also add some sugar here, however I feel that the mirin brings out enough sweetness that we don't really need it. Then we're going to beat and set aside 2 eggs. Oyakodon is sometimes made in a special small Oyakodon pot. The shape of the pot means that you can just simply slide everything straight onto your rice and it looks perfect. But sadly, I don't have a really small pot like that, so we'll just have to make do with a standard pan. Then into a cold pan, we're going to add our chicken thigh skin side down. The reason that we do this is so that we can get a nice browning on the skin and also so that we can render out some of the fat. This way, the fat will start going into the onions and the sauce and bringing out some of those meaty chicken flavors. If you want an even simpler Oyakodon, then you can just add the chicken after the onion, but you won't get as much of the meaty flavors. Then once the skin is a nice golden brown, take it off the heat and cut it into medium-sized chunks. Yes, we're still leaving one side completely uncooked because we're going to put it back in the pan in a bit. So now we'll have all of this chickeny fat in the pan, and we can just add our onions straight into the pan without adding any oil. Give them a bit of a stir, but then we're going to cook them in the sauce as opposed to cooking them first, then adding the sauce later. Give them a bit of a stir to make sure that everything's covered, and then leave them to bubble for about 2 minutes. Don't do this for too long just yet because we don't want everything to get too soft before we've added anything else. Then we're going to put our chicken back into the pan, make sure that everything is covered in the sauce, and then cover it with a lid. We're going to leave this covered for about 2 to 3 minutes or until the chicken has gone white on the outside. And then we're going to add half of our 2 beaten eggs. So I guess 1 beaten egg. And just make sure that it's got into some of the crevices before covering it with the lid again. And you can have a sneak peek halfway through to check that the egg isn't getting overdone. Then after another 2 to 3 minutes, take off the lid and add the last bit of egg. Then cover that for another 1 to 2 minutes, and it's done. I prefer mine to be a bit more done, but in Japan they often have it relatively runny, so you can leave it on a lower heat or reduce the time a bit. Then get your bowl of fresh rice and just put it on top. Here I basically cut out a circle to place it on top of the rice. And then garnish with some spring onions. You can optionally put this in at the last stage of cooking with the last bit of egg so that they're a bit more incorporated into the mixture, but I quite like the fresh spring onions. Now let's give it a taste. Yep, tastes chickeny and Japanese and pretty much like Oyakodon. If you've already learned something, then don't forget to give me a like, but let's move on to the honey mustard version. So first we're going to start with 25 grams of the honey of your choice, to which we're going to add 20 grams of Dijon mustard and 1 teaspoon of whole grain mustard. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of olive oil and give it a mix to make sure that everything is nice and combined. And we'll also prepare 65 milliliters of chicken stock. And I thought that the onions would be a little bit too acidic for the honey and mustard flavors, so instead of that we're going to do 2 cloves of garlic. So we're going to do that by making some vertical slices, then turning it over and making some slices perpendicular to those, and then chopping it up. Then again we're going to crack 2 eggs, but this time we're going to add some salt and pepper before whisking it up. Then once again we're going to add our ginormous chicken breast to a cold pan and render out some of the fat. Then once the skin is nice and golden brown, I'm just going to give it a very quick sear on the other side. This makes it a little bit easier to cut through. Then we're going to cut it into medium-sized chunks again, leaving the middle completely uncooked. Then put the pan onto medium heat, and into that leftover fat, we're going to just put all of our minced garlic. You only want to do this until the garlic is fragrant, so about 30 seconds. I've done it for slightly too long here, so the outer bits of garlic are starting to get a bit crisp. Then we're going to add all of our chicken broth. And we're going to make a slightly thick sauce by adding our honey and mustard mixture. Leave that on a medium heat for about a minute before it starts to get bubbly and a little bit thicker. Then add in all the chicken and its juices. Then give it a stir to make sure that everything is nice and coated, and put on the lid. And keep this covered for about 3 minutes. Then take off the lid and add in half of the 2 beaten eggs. Give it a little poke and then cover for another 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes it should look something like this. Add the other half of your beaten eggs and cover for 1 final minute. When that last minute is up, then uncover it and it should look something like this. Then get your steaming bowl of rice and plate it up. Then I had already cut 2 spring onions, so I've added the spring onions here, but if you don't think that it goes with honey and mustard, then you can just go for some cracked black pepper, or even another tablespoon of mustard. And there you have it, honey and mustard Oyakodon. This still tastes like Oyakodon, it still feels like Oyakodon, but it has the distinct sweetness of the honey and the kick of the mustard. I love experimenting like this, and sometimes it doesn't work so well, but sometimes it results in some really tasty chicken. So if you want to experiment with me, then don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!